Are you ready to manage your work and personal world better to live a fulfilling, productive life? Then you've come to the right place. Productivity Cast, the weekly show about all things productivity. Here are your hosts, Ray Sidney-Smith and Augusto Pinaud, with Francis Wade and Art Gelwicks.
Welcome back, everybody, to Productivity Cast, the weekly show about all things personal productivity. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith.
And I'm Augusto Pinaud.
And welcome to our listeners to this episode. We've got a little bit of a surprise for you all. We don't do this very often, but on occasion, here on Productivity Cast, we invite a guest to talk about a topic or a thing that we think is really useful. And we're actually really delighted to have Michael Sliwinski here from Nozbe. And so welcome, Michael, to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Augusto, do you want to tell us a little bit about, you have a longstanding relationship with Michael, and you want to tell us a little bit about Michael, and then Michael can fill in the gaps.
That sounds like a good plan. Yeah, I have the good fortune to call Michael a friend. I met Michael many years ago on a publication called Productive Magazine, and he's been talking about being no office and office free since at least the last 20 years, maybe more. Michael is the founder and the CEO of Nozbe, and now Nozbe has been growing and evolving and has a new product coming out called Nozbe Teams. And Nozbe Teams is one of the things that we want to focus this conversation on about this new thing. And I'm sure we will talk about iPad Only, the book that Michael and I wrote together, and we still strongly believe in and still continue using iPads. And I'm sure also we will talk about No Office, as it is really relevant to the dates that we are living right now. So with that, welcome, Michael.
Hi. Yes, thank you. I'm good. Anyway, before I start, I love the podcast. I'm a big fan and I'm a regular listener. Actually, a few weeks ago, I was listening to one of your shows, and then I was like, I don't want to listen to Augusto recorded. I want to talk to him. So it was for me an impetus to send him an iMessage and say, hey, Augusto, we haven't talked for a while. And then this is how we reconnected after a few months. So that was great. So anyway, I'm a big fan of this show. And I'm a productivity freak. So productivity geek, productivity freak, productivity aficionado, like however you want to call it. That's why I think I belong to the show in this sense. I've been building Nozbe, and it's a personal productivity tool that helps people be awesome by getting their stuff together. And we've been an all remote company, 25 people right now, I think. I always lose count. But anyway, we don't have an office. We don't go to any office. We've always been remote, and that's why also right now we are trying to help people to advise them how to deal with this current situation of the coronavirus and how to stay at home and work effectively.
Michael, I wanted to start us off with giving people an understanding of maybe the differentiation. What specifically differentiates Nozbe from, say, other time and task and project management software that are out there? And then if you can give us a little bit of compare and contrast between Nozbe Personal and Nozbe Teams.
Yeah, so the first thing was that Nozbe was built for me. I needed to solve my own problems, scratch my own itch, and build something that will help me get stuff done better. Second thing, Nozbe is a very powerful yet simple tool that I tried to simplify getting things done. It wasn't like an inspiration from getting things done, but not a direct implementation. Like for example, you compare it to OmniFocus, which has like lots of great features and it's very complex. You have to study OmniFocus to be able to use it, for example. But Nozbe is simplified because I tried to simplify. Like the origins were like I wanted to get next actions, projects, and context. And that's it, like nothing else. And this is what I did in the very beginning when I was building Nozbe. Right now, Nozbe has grown after 13 years to a very cool productivity tool with more than 500,000 users all over the world. What Nozbe is also syncs across all the devices. So you can have it even on Apple. There was even an Apple Watch app, so you can have your next actions on the go with just your watch. So in this sense, we tried to be like really multi-platform, really easy to use. And what happened was like when we were building Nozbe as a personal productivity tool, again, to make getting things done simple, to make productivity as simple as possible, to really be able to quickly put stuff into your projects, into your tasks, and also comment on the tasks. So this way you have a larger context of what you really want to do. When you think about Nozbe and other tools like this, they're all a different version, different interpretation of productivity. And in my case, I wanted it to be as simple to use as possible. And also as portable as possible, so that I could use it, on my iPad. Augusto and I wrote the iPad-only book. We just recently published it for free on the internet. So if you go to iPadonly.com, you can just read it for free. For me, the multi-platform, the simplicity, and also collaboration. So again, something that you don't get when for example, you have Things or OmniFocus is collaboration with other people. So in Nozbe, it's very simple to share a project with anyone. So even if somebody who doesn't have a Nozbe account can share a project with you, this way, you don't have to let go of your system. You can share a project with somebody, and when they create a task, they create a task in your project that you share with them. So you don't have to just copy and paste things. This would be like a briefly like the summary of Nozbe. So a very, very powerful, simple tool, but multi-platform and multi-personal if you want to. Now we have two tools. We just launched Nozbe Teams, and lots of people are asking, why would you build a completely new tool under the same brand name? Why not a newer version of Nozbe? But in Nozbe Teams is an opposite approach. It's approach from you create a team. So it's for a team to get stuff done together instead of you getting stuff together with some people. So that's like the simplest version to explain the difference between these two products is that the Nozbe, the original Nozbe, we call it right now Nozbe Personal, is a tool to help you get stuff done, also with some other people on all of your devices. But Nozbe Teams is to help teams get stuff done. So it's just basically just for teams, and there are like many things that we'll talk today, many differences that come from that. But it's a kind of completely different design decision, like from the get-go. And we had to build a separate tool for that because we just couldn't morph, current tool, in order not to upset users. Like otherwise, we would do something like completely strange. People wouldn't understand it. It would be like an upgrade that people wouldn't want to have. So that's why we decided to build a completely different tool just for teams, which is separate. And it's separate code base, it's separate database. There is no sync between these two. These are two different tools. And the aim was to bring productivity, getting things done to groups in an easier way.
And so what I find to be fascinating about Nozbe Personal, the things that draw me to Nozbe are the fact that it is based on the GTD principles. You build it from the ground up there. When you talk about multi-platform, and yeah, you can talk about the sexy language of Apple products, but there's a Linux app, and for those super geeks out there, myself included, you can put Nozbe on Linux and run with it. I mean, that's the level of geekery we're talking about here that I think a lot of our listeners really appreciate, and your ability to be able to understand the nature of productivity, not just because you care about GTD, but because you care about productivity as a whole. There isn't this existential argument about being productive from the GTD particulars. It's overall productivity, and baking that into teams. I'm really curious about this conversation today because of that piece. And I'm gonna let Augusto kick us off here because he's the Nozbe Teams guru here. So I'm curious from here on out, hearing from, and for our listeners and for my own benefit, I suppose, is how Nozbe Teams was built, understanding that I think David Allen didn't quite give us a lot of framework for how teams should really implement GTD. And I'm curious about that process that you all went through to identify how GTD should be implemented for group collaboration and actionability.
That's true. Like David Allen is insisting on GTD being very personal, and that's true. And but over the years, like I've been running Nozbe for the last 13 years. So I've, as I said, I've grown as a productivity geek and productivity student, and I've learned, and especially having an all remote team, which is like an extreme version of everything we can do. I've learned that yes, you can apply GTD for teams. You can apply it in a team environment, and we call it task-based collaboration. This is what we call it. We have We have coined the term for that. And this principle of task-based collaboration is something that we've learned with the first version of Nozbe, and then it was the main principle of Nozbe Teams.
When we wrote iPad only, that was one of the first things that happened. We create a project on Nozbe, and that was the project that moved that book from let's have this idea to let's publish this book. Okay. And as a user, as a person who had not used Nozbe up to that point, it was a really interesting experience to see how easy it was to interact with the different components of this. When between sending message to, hey, here is the revision of the chapter 1, through now we are going to add person X so that we have a third set of eyes to review. And that was a really powerful collaboration tool for me. As a person who lived in a really closed system, who lacks collaboration, I could see the power of that. When the idea of Nozbe Teams came out, I was lucky enough to have a conversation with Michael and access even the early versions of this. And what it was really interesting between 2013 on and now is how certain things has changed for me. At that time, I was working for a company. I had my own thing, but it was me, myself, and nobody else, so it didn't matter. Now, my business has evolved to the point that I have certain people that I deal with, and it is really nice to see how the approach of Nozbe Teams came up. As Michael was describing, Nozbe was designed for me and my productivity, while the Nozbe team is designed for the productivity of the team. And that really changed the way we do and see certain things. Not any of the tools, including Nozbe, really was up to that point really powerful into allow the team to move forward, to communicate, to have a repository where the things are, but at the same time where you could also keep your personal productivity component. That's what for me was really, really interesting. Not only that you are looking this from a completely different approach as where the team is going to move and what is a successful outcome, to use the GTD terminology of that team, but also how every team, to a certain extent, it's an equal into making this project and this success happening. That is something that I have not seen on any other productivity tool up to this point. And that's one of the things that for me made it really, really, really interesting. So I wanted to share that before we let Michael go in, where he's going to be able to trickle a lot more things that are coming. But that is the experience of a person who has live in a closed system and seen the interaction with both things, maybe without all the knowledge of living inside of Nozbe for so long.
The basic question that I get right now, and we get, and you can imagine that right now we have lots of confused people because of confused users, because there is Nozbe Teams for me, or is Nozbe Personal for me? What is for me? Or what to do? And what's really the difference? Nozbe Team is more of a personal tool. This one team tool. What's really changed, right? And the basic concept when you have a team productivity tool is that you structure things differently. For example, in Nozbe Personal, when you sign up for an account, you can create a project. And when you create a project, this project is the only thing, is you are the only person who can see the project, unless you invite somebody to this project. So even if you have a business account in Nozbe Personal and you have several people on your team, whenever you create a new project, this is just for you, unless you decide to invite somebody there. In Nozbe Teams, is completely the other way around. You create a project, and by default, everybody on the team can see the project. You can also limit who can see the project. You can limit that, but the default option is the project is open for the whole team. And this is what we've learned over the years of using Nozbe and talking to our business customers in Nozbe, that by default, most of the projects, why not? This is a company knowledge base. Why not have them open for everyone to see? Nobody will really follow all of these projects. And then comes another thing. We created the concept of following a project. when you follow a project, you get notifications from this project, activity information from this project. If you don't follow it, you don't. You can always access it, but you don't, follow the project. So you don't really follow what's going on in this project. So, and you can also, and the funny part is that you can also follow a task. Like if there is a project and then there is a task, for example, delegated to you, automatically you're following this task because, you were involved in this task. So the basic principle, suddenly you create projects for the team, not projects for yourself and some other people that you will have to invite. And the cool thing about this is that it eliminates this administrative overhead of just creating projects and always remembering, okay, I have to invite this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. I don't know, like this decision fatigue. We try, which as we know in productivity, decision it's real. It's something that really stresses us out and makes us unproductive later in the day. Like we wanted to get rid of it. We wanted to make sure that you create a project, you create tasks, you don't think too much about it. You just create stuff which is substantial, which is important. And then you decide who you want to delegate this task to, who you should notify about this. Like, it's the second thing, it's not the most important thing. So this is the whole concept is completely different. And putting this kind of logic in current Nozbe was completely impossible. That's why we decided to create a new product which focuses on this, on creating team projects and then tasks and then comments to these tasks.
Coming back to keeping the projects part of the team and available for everybody. So in a certain way, we are on geeking out what personal Kanban has done for many software developers, but we are bringing that to everybody, for people who is not familiar with that. Basically, we have in the gig world and developer world, you come and everybody have these meetings where we are trying to show everybody where are all the projects, where is the updates, how they are moving forward in the change. But when you go to non-development, that's a practice that rarely exists. The projects exist, the things exist, but they are all over. So without maybe not being relevant or being relevant, how that apply? I mean, at the end of the day, Nozbe, there is a big component on Nozbe in that software development. Okay, software development is on the day-to-day, store productivity, but it's on the day-to-day. So how much of that applies to the creation or to the idea of Nozbe Teams? How much of that was on the essence?
But so actually, the Nozbe Teams is a result of me personally interviewing lots of business customers of Nozbe. And again, for this show, I've prepared a few like really geeky stuff that like normally I wouldn't share in an interview, not about productivity, but we are among productivity geeks here. So for example, what I did was I created a time slot every Tuesday and every Thursday in an app called Calendly. That with a unique link that people could just click on this Calendly and just have a talk with me. So I just decided that in these time slots I'm available for customers. So what happened was that every time our customer support was thinking, this customer is interesting, this customer's industry is interesting, I think Michael could talk to these guys. So they would just email them, Michael would like to talk to you, or would you like to talk to Michael? And usually they were happy to talk to the CEO of Nozbe because they were using Nozbe themselves. And I was really curious about their industry, about how they work, how they get stuff done, and why they use Nozbe for their company. So this way, every week, I had 2-3 conversations with like amazing people, like CEOs and managers of really cool companies. And Nozbe is not a tool for big companies. Nozbe is like small and medium-sized companies. So really, but these companies are amazing. They're doing great things. And for me, what was astounding was that lots of them were from completely different industries. They were not in software. They were like lawyers. They were like real estate agents, insurance agents, like completely, lots of different industries. Like, for example, lawyers use Nozbe because they realized that their infrastructure, IT infrastructure, is just really crap, and they needed a way to store documents in a safe way in the cloud. And they knew that we encrypt documents when they are uploaded to Nozbe, so they were sure that they're very confidential, top secret deals and documents are safe. So they were using Nozbe because they needed a way to handle customer cases with security in mind. So with all these conversations, this is how Nozbe Teams came to be, because I was asking them how they are getting stuff done, why they decided not to send emails anymore to each other, but use internal tool like Nozbe to get stuff done. And because Nozbe Teams, in the end of the day, our biggest competitors are like companies like Asana, Basecamp, whatever. But the biggest competitor is email. The biggest competitor is non-usage, like not using a tool like this for internal communication. Because again, Nozbe is for task-based communication, internal communication in the team. So that's why when we were building Nozbe Teams, we were thinking about that, about normal people, normal users, not productivity geeks, not IT enthusiasts, because IT enthusiasts, they can build themselves like stuff, they like doing that. So with them it's really tricky, because they want to have like this small features that nobody else would use. But with Nozbe Teams, what we're trying to do is try to build a mainstream task-based communication tool that will switch small and medium-sized companies from using email, from using chat, from using all these different tools, and especially post-it notes, which they cannot use right now when they're working from home, to Nozbe Teams, where they can have everything in projects very nicely organized. And in Nozbe Teams, we have project sections, so we can have sections of projects, so we can see the progress. And then in the tasks, have the comments and attachments. This way, nothing is lost. Everything is in the same place. Like there is one source of truth to everything. And you can, with one glance, you can see when you open the project, you can see with avatars, like whose job is which task, like who's responsible for this, who's responsible for that. You don't have to ask. You don't have to send emails with carbon copy and blind carbon copy. So with all that, so what I'm trying to say is that I did something that doesn't scale. I was talking to customers, but because I was doing it over a few years, I managed to really have lots of conversations and really understand lots of industries. And for me, the cool thing was that, and this is what you would like, is that I found in these customers, there were lots of productivity geeks as well, who could appreciate having a productivity tool, like having a productivity system, like, because this is what we're talking about here in this show, on this show. That's what you do all the time, to have your own productivity system. And what they appreciated was this fact that they understood that they need a productivity system not only for themselves, but for the team, because they were getting stuff done, but everybody else was chaos. So they were trying to bring people on board. So they were like our champions inside these companies, And for me, talking to them was trying to understand, how can we build a tool that will help them incorporate productivity and convince other people to just give it a try, and not to just say, I don't want another tool for because this guy likes it.
What were some of the things that maybe shocked you in the conversations you had with these folks? I mean, yes, you identified that there were some productivity enthusiasts out there, some productivity geeks. What were some of the things that you thought kind of shocked you in the conversations that you thought you didn't know before you started talking to these customers?
You love it, man. So there were just so many cool things. So for example, there was a CEO of a small company that he was really a Nozbe enthusiast. He loved Nozbe and he wanted really everyone to use Nozbe. So what he did is he gave them treats. Like if they would, create a new project or something, he would give them like cinema tickets and all that stuff. So he would bribe them basically, so that they could use Nozbe more and more and more. And this is how he built this, muscle memory for everyone, the habits of using Nozbe, because he was kind of bribing a little bit his team members. So for example, something like that. Another thing, and it was another idea why we should design the system a little bit differently, was there were people who had thousands of projects. Because, for example, there was an insurance agent, and she's a very successful one. Unfortunately, but I'm saying unfortunately because of that, she had lots of customers, and she decided each customer is a different project, which makes perfect sense. Why not? Because in each project, like, she would put a task, with, for example, the most important thing, like with date and recurrence. So, for example, before, a date before the insurance of this somebody expires, she gets notified. People know what to do. She set up the whole thing, and because she was so successful, she created like 2,000 projects, and suddenly, like, our Nozbe app would break. Because of that. So we had to really issue a quick update to Nozbe app to make sure that we can fix this so that she can handle like 2,000 or 3,000 projects, because our app wasn't just designed for so many projects, but it made perfect sense. Like the one, as you know, like when you deal with insurance agents, when you deal with real estate agents, many times they screw up because they don't show up on time, they don't call back on time, they don't call you to remind you that you have a policy to upgrade or to renew or whatever. But she was successful because she had Nozbe and she had all the systems, all these tasks that would just remind her of, and then she would have even upselling, in the comment of a task, she would have like a checklist of what she can upsell to this customer later. So she would create a date for this task. The task would let's say show up in a few months with suggestions what to upsell to this customer, because she knew that she shouldn't upsell things to them right away when they became the customers, but should just wait a little bit and get confidence, gain confidence, and then do it. So it was for me amazing that Nozbe became this insurance agent tool.
Yeah, basically she built a CRM inside of Nozbe.
Exactly. Another thing I can tell you, this was completely mind-blowing. So I was talking about lawyers. So we have quite a few law firms using Nozbe, and the funny thing was there was a 60 people law firm there is in Poland, and the managing partner, so the busiest lawyer there is, in a big law firm like this, he was using Nozbe only on the iPhone. He wouldn't even download the Mac app. He wouldn't log in on web. Never. He just used the iPhone because he was on the way all the time. So and then again, they had this structure that every customer was every case was a different project. So every case was a different project. Again, because of the flexibility of Nozbe, they could do that. But the best part was that because he was using only iPhone, and there were 60 people on the team, and again, lots of projects. Again, we had to optimize the sync engine for the iPhone because he was just syncing too much data to his iPhone, and the app would freeze or something. So we had to just make sure that we can improve the app, because again, we were not prepared for this kind of use case that somebody would do something like that. And again, with Nozbe Teams, we have already thought bigger how to do it so that in the future, if somebody is a case like this, their data would sync and it wouldn't break and all that stuff. So we just put it already at the architecture part. But here we had to just kind of fix things as we went. But for us, it was like, again, how can somebody like such an important person, managing partner of a big law firm, just use the iPhone? And again, we realized that sometimes, suddenly, we are competing against typical law firmy, platforms who have other modules like invoicing and all that stuff, time tracking and whatever. They didn't need that. This law firm, this complex law firm, didn't need all these lawyerly features. What they needed was this guy to be able to manage his whole company with an iPhone.
And I'm actually starting to see that more and more, is that when some of these executives who, with no disrespect, are more mature, are getting upper in age, they choose to learn the smartphone, and then that's the only tool they'll use because they've learned it so well. It's a lesser featured interface, right? Because you have fewer things you can do in that space. So it's actually easier for them to learn. And so then they abide by using that solely, and they don't use. I actually have a client right now who that's his only interface with Evernote is the mobile device. And I'm always like, oh, so let's just go ahead and do this feature in Evernote. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's not on the iPhone. And so let's just simplify, because I think that it just makes a lot of sense.
So that was again our discovery, and so two things that we stand by firmly that we already did in Nozbe, but in Nozbe Teams had to take it to a whole new level. which made everything very complex for us, was the sync. So we said, after already having it in Nozbe Teams, we said, we're going the same route. We want to have data local. So local data, unlike, for example, other tools where if you want to just open a project, it pulls data from the internet. We realized that even though everybody is on a super Wi-Fi or super fast LTE, whatever, the truth of the matter is that very often you need access to data very quickly. And if you want to wait, if you're forced to wait for something to pull from the internet, sometimes you're in a spotty connection. You're just in this place where the connection is not good. So we decided it has to be local. So the sync engine has to sync the information, keep syncing the information, and you pull out the iPhone, it works. You are on the airplane, it just works. Like, for example, on the airplane, sometimes you have internet connection on the airplane, but when you do, it's very, very slow. So it can sync the information, but if you would like to, to just pull up the whole project, it would be impossible. So that was one thing. And second thing, also what we found out in Nozbe, and now in Nozbe Teams even more so, we want the same feature set, so the same powerfulness of the iPhone and the desktop app, which also means that sometimes the desktop app will not have certain feature that maybe other competitors have because it's glorious and very like sparkly and whatever. We decided to simplify just to make sure that we can do the same thing you can do on the iPhone, you can do on the iPad, and you can do on the web. Of course, sometimes the interface is a bit better. Of course, we do certain things differently on the web or on the iPad because we have a bigger screen real estate, but the feature set, so the powerfulness is the same. This way, as you, Ray, in your example, this guy doesn't have this problem that, this feature, you cannot do it on the iPhone. No, you can still do it on the iPhone. So it's for us, that's why, for example, right now, when we implement anything new to Nozbe Teams, we have to figure it out how it works on the mobile and then how it works on the web. We don't want to have anything that would just impede people like this guy, like this managing partner, like just use the iPhone. Like if it's your only interface, stick with that. It's fine.
I think that's a really great principle of thinking mobile first. I mean, I talk about this all the time to small businesses about marketing and thinking about their mobile marketing first as they go into this. But thinking mobile first in terms of the app interface, I think is such an important aspect of how you're developing Nozbe Teams. And I really like that.
Yeah, when you think about it, people, as you said, increasingly their interface will be mobile, will be iOS, will be Android, and you don't want to have them a lesser experience. And you want them to get stuff done. You want them to be able to get back to you, to send you this comment, to reply to your task, to be able to move it to a project, to be able to really get stuff done on the go. So this is really important. And the good thing, again, this is the good thing about me being an iPad geek, is that I'm iPad only. I'm like, my main interface is my iPad. I have a Mac in my home office, but my Mac is my secondary canvas. Like I do stuff. I prefer to get stuff done on my iPad Pro. So this way, on one hand, it kind of people are looking at me like I'm crazy, but on the other hand, this to me is great because then I can really make sure that when we design Nozbe Teams, I am not the handicapped person because I can do the same thing everybody else can do on their desktop.
When I work with a small business, it's exactly that. Their mobile device is their main machine, is the machine where they spend 80% of the time. And a lot of the frustration I hear on some of those conversations is, yes, if when I get to the computer, I can then do fill in the blank. And I think it is something that we are seeing more and more where their iPhone or their Android is their main device and really the only device that they want to use, especially after they get to a certain level, So that approach that I experience in Nozbe and I experience in Nozbe Teams, it is really, really an advantage of the platform.
Yeah, and so another cool things that I wanted to share with you guys, another cool behind the scenes things. What happened last year when we finally we started, having the beta version of Nozbe Teams. It was still very, very early product, but we saw that our team is not really using much of it. So one day, one of our main lead developers, he just exported all of our projects to Nozbe Teams, all of our team projects, and deleted them from Nozbe. Like he just basically forced everyone to go to Nozbe Teams, and it was great. Like we needed that. We were, of course, like most of the teams was not really happy with the sudden change of platform, but this spiked the usage of Nozbe Teams. So we started getting used to the platform and just seeing everything that wasn't working right. And one of the things we discovered, even though we were using the same projects in Nozbe, but then in Nozbe Teams, what happened, we realized that we discuss more. So we send more comments. And we are, the interface for comments is also better in Nozbe Teams than in the Nozbe, because it's like really important. But also, there are more discussions. Like when the projects are open, when tasks are available to everyone, people are, very often just writing more. They're just writing more comments. They're giving more feedback, which is good, because again, we believe in this asynchronous feedback. So it's not like Slack, like chat, where you are expected to reply right away. No, it's like somebody's going, doing a weekly review, going through projects that they normally wouldn't go through, and they see a task which is interesting for them, and they say, oh, well, I know I have some opinions here, so they just write a comment. And what we decided early on was like, whoa, so if this is the case in our case already, like we used to use Nozbe like this, we are right now using Nozbe Teams, and our comments increased. We had to inverse the comments, because in Nozbe Personal, comments go from the latest to the oldest. So the top comment is the latest comment, and we thought it was the right thing to do. But when we saw how many comments we are producing in Nozbe Teams, we realized it's not I mean, for personal use, it's fine. But for a team use, when you have so many comments, it's easier to just scroll down and just read and read and read. So in Nozbe Teams, we actually borrowed the idea from WhatsApp, from WhatsApp groups. Like when you open a task, what happens is the comment thread opens, and you are being transported to your last seen comment in this thread, and then you just can continue where you left off. So basically the same way when you open a WhatsApp group and you have the chats, the same way, because we realized that this is kind of like Nozbe Teams is more of a task manager, like a crossing between task manager and a WhatsApp, like because it's a communication tool, a team communication tool. So that's why we had to invert the comments and do all this. And again, with so many decisions in Nozbe Teams, we brought on ourselves so many problems, so many engineering problems and engineering challenges because of that, because we had to really learn how to implement this. But for the customer, it's just seamless. Like they are like in the same place where they were last time here, and they have seen the new comments. They can scroll to read the comments. They can reply to the comment. Everything is fine. Everything looks good. But for us, it was a complete reverse of our, of the way we used to do it in Nozbe. So we had to learn it again, because in the team environment, you just communicate more.
And it's really interesting because the reality is that I'm going to make an argument here that most people are not going to like, but they have their email set up wrong. Because people read emails backwards, and they also read and reply backwards. When you reply to a message, the message should be below the original message, just like WhatsApp. It's like it has always boggled my mind how unproductively people read email because of the structure of putting everything above the prior message. So you're always reading the opposite way that the brain actually naturally thinks of chronology. So like think of a conversation. You think of it in a linear fashion from one time to the next, not the backwards, not in the inverse way. And so I love that, being able to just like take a conversation from where you last read it and going from there just makes sense.
Yeah, and just small things like that we had to like figure out. For example, every task in Nozbe Teams, like in any task manager, has parameters like date, recurrence, delegation, like who's responsible for that and all that stuff. But for example, we had to figure out that, of course, they do have the parameters, but if you're opening a comment and you want a task and you want to catch up, these parameters should be very small, because you don't care about them right now. You don't want to change them right now until you've read all the comments, because only then you can decide what to do with the task. Should you take it, or should you just delegate it to somebody else, or whatever? So again, this kind of situation, having here the task parameters smaller than bigger, like all these, this was all design decisions that we're still tweaking, but we're trying to make with Nozbe Teams, because as I said, many people who will use Nozbe Teams now have never used a tool like this, have never used a task manager, have never used a productivity system at all. So we are trying to, and we'll see how this goes, but we're trying to make it as easy to use as possible, as natural to use as possible. That's why the structure is simple. There is a team. In team, we have projects, and we have tasks, and we have comments, and we have some task parameters, but just like how to make it as intuitive and as good to use on the mobile. So all these things, like I can tell you all about these, nitty gritty design decisions that we had to go through, but we wouldn't have time for this show. But I wanted to give you some just ideas how it all went through.
I think it's really important to bring back and to reinforce the fact that basically you're going to have the projects and the task and all that, but you are going to keep all the tools, all the ways that you are communicating today before you implement this into your company, the email, the text, the Slack, whatever way of communication was a big difference. Now everything will be accessible in the right context, because any of our listeners or the non-listeners, okay, who are experiencing this problem, the problem sometimes is, okay, I remember Michael sent me an email about this, and that's where everything fall apart. Or yes, it was a mail or it was a text when this came. And that is a problem that I see a lot, especially in the small businesses. There are 2 or 3 people, and because there are 2 or 3 people and they're pretty simpatico with each other, they don't have this really good communication protocol. And when you look at from the Nozbe team perspective, it is really, really powerful and cool to know you don't need to go to the email or to the text. Keep the communication inside of the tool. Doesn't matter the device you're using to access, and you will be able to have all those specific elements. Just from the productivity perspective, as a coach, that will save so many hours to small businesses not looking for that piece of information, for that comment. Oh, he said the color was purple or green. Just that little thing will save hours to people.
Yeah. So, for example, and another difference between Nozbe Teams and Nozbe from, again, productivity standpoint. I told you, Ray, that in the beginning that Nozbe, when it was born for me, it was born for personal use. And my idea was to simplify. So, for example, if a task was due, it just directly went to your next actions. Because it was due right now, it was due for you, no problem. It just shows in your next actions. We were later renamed it to priority, but it would show up there, because it was for you. But once we started implementing that and delegating tasks to people, it became their priority. It was getting to be kind of a mess. So in Nozbe Teams, for example, what we did is we have this whole incoming section, like an inbox. So incoming section is like, if a task is due, it goes to your incoming. If somebody delegates a task to you, it goes to your incoming. If somebody mentions you in a comment of a task, it goes to your incoming. And then in your incoming, you decide what to do. You've read it, okay, whatever. Or you delegate it to somebody, or you comment on it, or you make it your priority. But the only way for the task to be your priority is your conscious decision. It has to be your decision. Your click on the star to become your priority. So again, when we saw how many people were collaborating, we realized that it's not a good design decision that if somebody delegates tasks to you, they can influence your priority, your next actions. Your next actions is your choice. We compared it to a desk. If I'm sitting at the desk and somebody wants something from me, they should put it in my inbox, because then I'll deal it in my inbox instead of just shoving it in my face. Like, Michael, fix this. So again, these are the decisions we had to do when we were doing Nozbe Teams. So as you can see, they're small but kind of substantial difference that we had to go through, and we didn't want to spoil Nozbe product, Nozbe Personal, for 500,000 users that are already using it, but do something better, something different for teams who are just completely new to this, who are completely new to having this kind of system, any kind of productivity system.
So today, Nozbe Teams is as it is, right? It's a fairly new product. It's out of beta. People can access it. Where do you feel like Nozbe Teams is going to go in the next 6 months? If you could share with us a little bit of roadmap in terms of what do you think is the next best thing that's going to come to Nozbe Teams that I think will level up the app, that you think will level up the app in a way that will make it better?
Yeah. So, when you know how software development works, you have to sacrifice lots of cool features you would love to have in the initial version, because you just cannot make it all happen. It's just impossible. So that's why at the launch, you just had to go, we had to decide, cut our, darlings and remove lots of cool features that we have prepared for people to use. So in the coming, half a year, like, we will be improving and iterating on the product a lot. One of the first things we are implementing, which we haven't done on the launch, but it's coming, I think in a week or two already, is the integration with email. So we can email tasks to Nozbe. We didn't do it on launch because we wanted to do it a little bit differently than we did it in Nozbe. But it's coming. Later, integration with Slack. So our idea is that we could copy the team from Slack, build it in Nozbe, like just completely copy it to Nozbe, and then have an integration that you can any thread, any Slack chat thread, you can convert it into a task. This way, like when you start chatting with somebody and you get to some details, you're like, no, this shouldn't be here in Slack because we'll forget about it. So just like make it a task, boom, and then it goes to your task, to your project. This way it won't be forgotten, because Nozbe should be the source of truth in your company. You don't want to be browsing through infinite chat messages to get things done. So this definitely. Also, we have this cool idea of resources. So the project right now has tasks. We have sections of tasks, and you can already comment with text and also attachments. But we want to make sure that you also, in a project, there are also things that which are not tasks, which are just resources, like templates and documents, like all these things. And right now, the hacky way to do it is just to create a task with all these resources and just put them there. But we want to make sure that they are just the first-class citizen, that a project can have these resources which are not to be done. They are there to be there. So this is another big thing. And also working on files. Like, we want to introduce this way that you can have like versions of files in Nozbe. This way, like, you just upload the same file, but like a newer version, and you can comment on the newer version, on the changes. So this way, we want to reduce or completely remove this necessity of sending attachments through any other means. Like, even if you, so in Nozbe, in Teams in the future, you will be able to collaborate with anyone outside of the team as a guest, for example, to a project or to a task. And this way, you don't have to send them an email with attachment. You send them a link to the task. They'll be able to access it and to even to upload their version or whatever. This way, you can invite them to collaborate with you in your system. So the things stay in your system, but you don't send them just emails with stuff and then copy and paste them in your Nozbe. So we want to make sure that Nozbe Teams becomes your company intranet. Again, flexible for any industry. So not just for software development or for lawyers, anyone, manufacturing. So that, and to be able to just work with other people, but still things come back to your Nozbe Teams. This way you have everything there where you should have it. And as Augusto said, you don't have to search for things. Search like where was it? Where did it go? Like, where was the last version of the attachment, or where was the resource? It should all be there. So I think this kind of, and then of course other integrations and all that other stuff is coming also soon.
Yeah, I love the idea. I love the idea of having a single source of truth, as you said earlier, to like having a brand assets resources area. Exactly. Like all the logos in just one spot. And that's just going to be something you use over and over again, as opposed to asking the client 16 times, "Where's that logo?" or "Where's the newest version of that logo?" or what Oh man, it's just such a back and forth on all that stuff. And then it's like, oh, well, I can't email the logo because it's too large, and all those kinds of silly things that do come up. Before we close out, just kind of the target audience for Nozbe Teams again, and the pricing structure really as you have it right now, because it's free up to 5 team members with 5 projects and 3 sections per project and that kind of thing. So I wanted just to discuss that a little bit before we close out.
Again, the idea for Nozbe Teams right now, and especially in this situation, is to really create new habits. And I want to just highlight it again, that create new habits, that things go into our productivity system, and the challenge is to make sure that everyone on the team understands that if you don't put stuff there, it's going to be gone. It's not going to be available to everyone. And my experience with Nozbe Personal already, and with teams using Nozbe Personal in the past, and the teams I was talking to, was the fact that once a company gets it, they really get it. So it takes a little bit more time. So it takes a little bit of patience for these people introducing this kind of tool into their companies. But once they get it, the change is great. Like they experience the same kind of change that we do when we discover GTD and we start, getting our stuff organized. The same kind of thing, but on a team level, which is just amazing. And suddenly, they know where things are. They know who said what. They know they know things, and like there was one company, you asked me about some examples. So there was one company that the guy said that thanks to Nozbe, he got like 50% more revenue. And I was like how? Like Nozbe is not a revenue generating, tool. Like what are you saying? And he said, because my team is not forgetting stuff. Because they're putting tasks, they're putting attachments to these tasks and all that stuff. They don't forget about things. They don't forget about, because of course, many customers, when they see that somebody is slacking off or not delivering on time, they just walk away. So like the revenue goes away. And with a tool like Nozbe, apparently it generates them more revenue. So it pays for itself because of this fact that people don't forget things, and then they deliver things on time. And as we know, like 80% of everything is just to show up. So that's the thing.
Absolutely. So talk to us a little bit about who is Nozbe Teams for? And I'm gonna go over your current kind of levels here. So you can start with Nozbe Teams for free currently, and you can have up to 5 team members in that Nozbe Teams account with 5 projects and 5 project sections. And so that's pretty generous, and it gives people an opportunity to really onboard and get kind of set up and try Nozbe Teams out, and then it levels up from there in increments for sizes of teams. So you're not paying for an individual user, but the number of users within that team for that monthly fee. So who's Nozbe Teams for?
We say Nozbe Teams is for small teams that want to do great things, basically. So for small teams to do great things, so any team that is small, that like for us, the target audience for Nozbe Teams is between 5 and 20 people. So this is like our main core user base, 20, 30, but 5 to 20, 30. So we're not going after like, big corporations, big companies. We're going after small and medium-sized businesses because they need to get organized, because they cannot afford to lose time on searching for things and getting organized. And that's why the structure was like this. So I'm going to explain 2 things. First of all, why the freemium model? So we were debating this, like trial, freemium, what to do. But we decided, as you said, to be a bit generous and help people understand, like build the habits. And also by talking to business customers, I realized that when they try with just a few people, a few projects, they get the hang of it. When they get the hang of it, then they are likely to upgrade. And them getting the hang of it takes more than 30 days. They need sometimes a few months to really get the hang of it. That's why having a freemium model where it's completely free for up to 5 people, up to 5 projects, gives them time to just get used to the tool, to get used to this kind of structure. And then they can onboard more people. And then the tiers, why we did tiers instead of just per user. Because we want to also make sure that people, when they upgrade, I mean, the cool thing is that with every tier, the price per user is lower. So the savings are there. And that because we are for small teams, the tiers are like this at 5, 7, 10, 15, 20, and 30. So these are the tiers. And the important thing about it was that if somebody buys a 15, like for example, there are 11 people, but they buy a 15 person tier, then when they have new person, they will not debate whether they should buy a new Nozbe user for them and the whole structure. No, they just set them up an account and that's it. And this new person who's on the team will instantly get access to everything that's on the team that they should have access to, which is just amazing. Can be overwhelming. That's true. But on the other hand, it's great. They can, go through projects, they can go through tasks, see what's going on, see who's working on what. So very quickly they can get up to speed. So with tiers, we just wanted to nudge people that they shouldn't, think too much about it. And another thing, so for the month of April, the and beginnings of May, even the premium version is free, because we decided, to launch early, not implement the payment systems, and just let people just use it. And then we will implement it in May. But another thing that we made sure that small businesses don't have problems using Nozbe and upgrading to higher tiers is that upgrading doesn't require you to pay anything. So I think this is one of the, I'll see, this is an experimental thing, but I think it's going to be great. The idea is this: if you buy a plan for 5 people, like for a month, and then you see that you have the 6th person on board, you just upgrade to 7 people with 1 click. And what happens is that we just recalculate like how many days are on your plan and just make your renewal just earlier. So instead of like in a month, let's say you would renew in 20 days. That's it. So, but you don't have to, right now pay the difference, the increment, or whatever, consult, your CFO or your financial or your accountant or whoever. You just upgrade, boom, it's automatic. And then you will have just the renewal a little bit earlier with the new plan. And that's it. So and then let's say the 6th person is going back, is going out of the team, and you have 5 people again, you just downgrade. And again, you get just more days on your plan, and that's it. So we made it also for small teams, because we know that they are tight on budget, to make sure that there is no problem going up and down with the plans, because we know the small teams evolve all the time, and we want to give them this opportunity to just do it with Nozbe, and not thinking about paying another $100 right now or $200 right now when they don't have to. So and the entry-level plan with unlimited projects, it starts $29. So for 5 people, it's $29. For 7 people, $39. And for 10 people, it's $49 per month total, not per user, but total. So I think, we're trying to be very generous and very, make a price very affordable for small teams, because we want the small teams to do great things.
Yeah, I love the idea of being able to make it even more productive to just upgrade and downgrade users. It makes total sense to give small teams that perspective. And, I work with a lot of small businesses, and their ability to be flexible with that kind of environment is absolutely true. They need that level of flexibility, and it's great to see that built into a productivity management and a project management tool in that sense. I wanted to also note that Michael and his team put together a 5-part series of videos on working from home. And I'm going to put a link to this in the show notes for folks who want to just get a quick upstart in terms of understanding how to work from home and remote working. And so those 5 episodes are there on the Nozbe website, and very, very helpful for folks just kind of getting themselves oriented to this working from home and remote work environment. So it's a great resource that they've put together. And then thank you, Michael Sliwinski from Nozbe and Nozbe Teams. Thanks so much for joining us here on Productivity Cast.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me here and be able to geek out with you. It was a pleasure. And then, as you said, we are going to produce more resources for working from home. So watch them on our blog. It's all coming. We can't wait to help people to also help in this situation. So thank you again for having me here.
Yeah, we'll place notes in the show notes to the Nozbe blog and the Nozbe Facebook page and all the other places, the Twitter account that you've been sharing stuff on regarding work from home. I think that's really, really helpful for everybody, especially in these times. Thank you to Michael Sliwinski from Nozbe and Nozbe Teams for joining us here on Productivity Cast. While we are at the end of our discussion together, the conversation doesn't stop here. If you have a comment or a question about what we've discussed during this cast, please visit our episode page on productivitycast.net. There on the podcast episode page, at the bottom of the page, feel free to leave a comment or a question. We read and respond if needed to every comment or question. By the way, to get to any Productivity Cast episode fast, simply add the 3-digit episode number to the end of productivitycast.net /. So, episode 1 would be productivitycast.net /001. Episode 2 would be productivitycast.net /002, and so on. While I'm at it, if you have a topic about personal productivity you'd like us to discuss on a future cast, please visit productivitycast.net /contact. You can leave a voice recorded message or type us a message, and maybe we'll feature it on a future episode. I want to express my thanks to Augusto Pinaud for joining me here this and every week on Productivity Cast, and you can learn more about him and his work by visiting productivitycast.net too. I'm Ray Sidney-Smith, and on behalf of all of us at Productivity Cast, here's to your productive life.
That's it for this Productivity Cast, the weekly show about all things productivity, with your hosts, Ray Sidney-Smith and Augusto Pinaud, with Francis Wade and Art Gelwicks.